Marshall Reed stood in the hallway of his own house, holding a mug of black coffee that had gone cold in his hand. He wasn't supposed to be there. He was supposed to be in the living room setting up gifts for their son, maybe putting on the fireplace channel like every year. But something had pulled him toward the guest room. Voices. He heard Dana, his wife, laughing in a low whisper with her sister, Tori. Then her voice dropped to a tone that cut through him like a blade. "He's so pathetic, Tori. I fake everything. The laughs, the love, even last night. He still thinks I care." Tori chuckled. "Girl, you're savage." Marshall didn't move. His legs locked, breath frozen in his chest. He blinked once. Twice. Was this real? Was this a dream? She went on. "I mean, I feel kind of bad sometimes, but not really. He's just so boring. All he does is build furniture and watch documentaries. No edge. No heat. Roan makes me feel alive." Marshall couldn't feel his fingers. Roan? He backed away slowly, careful not to make a sound. He walked down the hallway like a man in someone else's house. His mind played her words again and again. He's so pathetic. He walked into the kitchen, placed the coffee on the counter, and stared at the cabinets. His reflection in the dark glass was hollow. He didn't cry. He didn't scream. He didn't break anything. He just stood there. And one question hit him like a gut punch. How long has my wife been living a life I wasn't even part of? Hey, if you're still watching, that means you're enjoying the story. I have one small request. I'm trying to reach my first 1,000 subscribers. If you like stories like this, please hit the like button and subscribe to join the journey. It means a lot to me. And trust me, even better stories are coming. The rest of the morning passed like a movie scene Marshall wasn't part of. He smiled when needed, nodded, handed his son a wrapped remote control car, and watched him scream with joy. Dana kissed their boy's cheek, laughed, wore her Christmas robe like everything was perfect. Marshall played along. He didn't ask about Roan, didn't confront her, didn't even flinch when she touched his arm during brunch. Every time she leaned in to say something, he wanted to recoil, but he didn't. He was measuring her now. Every laugh felt scripted. Every, "Baby, can you grab me that?" sounded rehearsed. At one point, while everyone was opening gifts, Tori looked at him and smiled. Too wide. Too fake. He knew. She knew he didn't know. And that made it worse. After the presents, Dana came into the kitchen while he was rinsing dishes. "You've been quiet," she said. "I'm tired," he replied without looking at her. She touched his shoulder. "Long year, huh?" "Yeah," he said, drying his hands. "Really long." She kissed his cheek. "Well, here's to better days coming." He forced a smile. "Can't wait." Inside, he was screaming. Every moment felt like a performance now. And Marshall was just waking up to the fact that he'd been the only one who thought it was real. He stayed up late after everyone had gone to bed, sitting on the edge of the guest room bed. The same room where she called him pathetic. No tears, just stillness. He stared at the wall for hours, then whispered into the dark, "I'm not pathetic, but I will be quiet. For now." The next morning, Marshall opened his laptop and started pulling bank records. Nothing big, just subtle things. An extra gas station charge near Oak Ridge, restaurant receipts from a seafood place Dana hated, Uber trips from somewhere she never mentioned going. He wasn't crazy. Not anymore. He was observant. He pulled up the shared calendar. She had marked late nights at work, almost like she was trying too hard to make it believable. But who triple logs a budget review at 8:30 p.m. on a Friday? He found photos on her phone later that day when she was in the shower. Not of Roan, but of herself, done up, lips out, in that red dress she never wore around him. One of the photos had the edge of a hotel headboard in the background. Marshall stared at her phone like it was a crime scene. He didn't know exactly how far it went, but it didn't matter anymore. The truth wasn't just in her words. It was in the pattern. He started setting up, bought a few cheap cameras, hid one in the hallway, another in her car's dash vent, installed remote tracking software onto her laptop. Every step, he moved carefully, quietly. No rage, no accusations, only strategy. Later that night, Dana came into the garage where he was sanding a tabletop. "You've been working a lot lately," she said. "Got a deadline," he replied without looking up. "You okay?" He paused, wiped dust from his hands. "Why wouldn't I be?" She hesitated. "Just asking." He smiled. "Just a little." You'll be the first to know if I'm not. She left, and as the garage door shut behind her, Marshall whispered to himself, "You'll be the last to know what I am." The next crack in the lie came from Tori. Marshall wasn't even trying to catch her. She handed herself over. One afternoon while Dana was out running errands, Tori stopped by the house, claimed she was dropping off a scarf Dana left in her car. He offered her coffee. She sat at the kitchen island like nothing was wrong. She talked about nothing, weather, her fiancé, the lack of snow this year. But her smile kept twitching. Marshall didn't push. Then her phone buzzed. A message preview lit up the screen. She grabbed it fast, but not fast enough. "Dana, he doesn't suspect a thing, huh?" Marshall tilted his head slightly. "Busy day." Tori's voice skipped. "Huh? Oh yeah, just, holiday stuff. Right?" he said slowly. "All the acting must be exhausting." She froze. "What?" I said, "All the shopping. Must be exhausting. Right? Yeah." But he'd seen her flinch. That's when he knew. Tori wasn't just aware of the affair. She was in it. A co-conspirator. Covering. Protecting. And possibly encouraging. After she left, Marshall sat down at his desk and started digging through Dana's cloud backups. He used a recovered password from her Notes app, something she used for online coupons and grocery points. He was in. Messages. Audio clips. Screenshots. Even saved voice memos. And Tori's voice showed up more than once. "Honestly, Dana, you deserve this. Marshall is stable, sure. But Rona's passion. Take it." His stomach turned. They weren't just lying. They were entertaining themselves with his trust. That night, when Dana returned and kissed his cheek, he almost pulled away. But he didn't. He smiled and asked how her day was. She said, "Tori says hi." And he replied, "Tell her I said thanks." Marshall had heard the name once before. Ron Delaney. Dana had mentioned him back when they first started dating. A college ex. A bad boy turned finance bro. "Nothing serious," she said. Turns out that was a lie too. Ron was very serious now. A simple reverse phone lookup gave Marshall his full name, number, address, and even a photo. Tall, sharp-dressed, with that plastic charm some men wear like armor. He ran a small tech consulting firm 2 towns over, with questionable Yelp reviews and even more questionable financial filings. Marshall sat there at 2 a.m., staring at Ron's LinkedIn profile, sipping whiskey like it was fuel. The man looked like the type who talked fast, flirted without blinking, and lied without effort. Then he found it. A photo from Ron's Instagram, posted just last week. Ron at a bar, arm around a woman. Half her face was visible. Her hand, her necklace. Dana's necklace. He zoomed in. No doubt. She had wore it on Christmas Eve. That was the night she came home late from a staff dinner. His jaw tightened. He imagined Ron laughing, telling Dana how easy it was. How boring men like Marshall never see it coming. How he probably thought she was shopping for kitchen towels while they were in hotel rooms 10 minutes from home. Marshall didn't feel pain anymore. He felt clarity. This wasn't just cheating. This was personal, calculated. He started a document on his desktop, named it Response Plan, and the first line he typed was, "Ron Delaney will regret ever saying my name." The next 2 weeks were pure theater. Marshall kissed her forehead every morning, helped their son with homework, took Dana out for dinner one night just to reconnect. She smiled like she was winning. He smiled because he knew she was losing. At night, while she showered, he reviewed texts. He knew her schedule before she did. He watched her lie and even helped her cover one up, just to see how far she'd go. She told him she'd be working late Thursday. He made her favorite pasta that night. She came home at midnight, hair slightly undone, lipstick faded. He said nothing. She looked at him nervously. "You waited up?" "Yeah," he said. "You okay?" "Just tired. Long meetings." "Yeah." He nodded. "You want me to reheat your food?" She blinked. "You made dinner?" "Of course. It's Thursday. Your favorite." She looked at the table. "I didn't know." "That's okay. You've been busy." She bit her lip. "I am sorry." He stood, kissed her head, and whispered, "Don't be. You worked so hard." She looked like she might cry, but she didn't. She went upstairs quietly, and Marshall stood in the kitchen with the untouched plate of pasta, whispering to himself, "I'm not your fool. I'm your ending." Marshall had everything he needed, but still, he wanted proof she couldn't deny. Not texts, not bank charges. Video. Unshakable, in her own skin truth. The dash cam in her car had been running for days. He set it up to auto-upload to a hidden drive. She never noticed. People rarely notice what's right in front of them. That Friday night, she said she was grabbing drinks with coworkers. Marshall kissed her goodbye, told her to have fun. Then he opened the camera folder. She didn't go to the bar. She went to a mid-range hotel off Route 12. She parked, fixed her lipstick in the mirror, smiled at herself. Roan met her outside the entrance. He wore a blazer like he thought it made him important. She ran into his arms. The camera caught the whole thing. The hug, the kiss, the whisper. Marshall muted the video, but he already knew what she was saying. She looked happy. Real. That's what hit hardest. It wasn't about lust. It was that she wanted to be there. He checked the hallway cam next. Hours later, around 2 a.m., Dana walked in the door, heels in hand. She didn't even look tired. She went straight to the kitchen, drank juice from the bottle, and smiled to herself. He rewound. Watched again. No vid. No hesitation. Just a woman coming home from a night she thought would stay secret. Marshall stared at the screen for a long time, then said out loud, "If I ever had doubts, they're dead now." That night, he walked into the garage like he always did when his mind raced. Only this time, he wasn't there to build. He stared at the hammer on the wall. The one his father had given him years ago. The weight of it felt good in his hand. Cold. Honest. He stood there, gripping it tighter and tighter. Thoughts flooded his head. Roan's hands on her. Dana's voice calling him pathetic. Tori laughing. Their son, innocent, upstairs, clueless. The life he'd built now, nothing more than a cardboard stage set. He raised the hammer, but he didn't smash anything. He held it, felt the edge of rage kiss his mind. Then he set it back down. Slowly. He wasn't going to destroy his life in a moment of heat. He was going to dismantle theirs piece by piece, like a craftsman. No fire. No screaming. Just pressure. Quiet and slow. He picked up a notebook. Started writing. Steps. Moves. Names. He underlined one sentence. Control is power. Emotion is a weapon. By the time Dana came into the garage later that night, he was calmly sanding wood again. "You okay?" she asked. He looked at her, not blinking. "Never better." She kissed his cheek. "I love you." He smiled. "I know." And in that moment, he decided she'd never see the hit coming. Marshall turned revenge into a plan. Not a reaction, a strategy. Every morning, before Dana woke up, he added to the document. It wasn't just notes anymore, it was blueprints. A full structure. Objective 1, financial lock. He began shifting his income to a new LLC, completely in his name. He closed joint savings under the excuse of moving to investments. She didn't question it. Objective 2, legal net. He met with a discreet attorney, set up contingencies, explained the basics, not the full story. "You're divorcing her?" the lawyer asked. "Not yet," Marshall said. "First, I want her to show me who she really is." Objective 3, target Roan. He created a fake business persona, complete with website, pitch deck, even LinkedIn. Roan, with his ego and dollar signs in his eyes, would bite. He just needed the right lure. Marshall made it convincing, a green tech startup, looking for someone to handle internal software design. Big promise. Fast returns. The kind of thing a guy like Roan would risk for. Objective 4, silence. Keep playing the role. Stay sweet. Stay blind. Let them get deeper. Bolder. By the time they saw the walls closing in, they'd already be trapped. He printed one page of the plan, folded it, and taped it to the inside of his tool cabinet door. One word at the top, execution, and underneath it, he scribbled, "They buried me in lies. Now I'll bury them in truth." Marshall knew he had to start attaching, but slowly. Too sudden, and she'd notice. Too cold, and she'd pull away before he was ready. So he changed the rhythm. He stopped texting her during the day. No "how's your day" messages. No check-ins. He started leaving the house earlier and coming home later. Blamed it on client work. She noticed. Of course she did. "Everything okay?" she asked over dinner one night, stirring her pasta absent-mindedly. He nodded. "Just tired. Lots going on." She tilted her head. You sure? Yet he said. All good. But it wasn't. And she knew something was shifting. That's what he wanted. He let her feel the gap between them start to widen. He needed her off balance. Guessing. At night, they didn't cuddle like they used to. When she tried, he pretended to be asleep. When she asked to go out, he made excuses. Client dinner. Late orders. Deadlines. She started texting Roan more often. Marshall saw it in the logs. She was leaning harder into the lie. Perfect. Because the more she distanced herself emotionally, the more evidence she left behind. One night, while she was in the bathroom brushing her teeth, he glanced at her phone on the nightstand. It lit up. Roan, next weekend. You and me. No more secrets. Marshall smiled to himself and whispered, keep planning. I'll be there too. The first time he said he had to travel, she barely blinked. Trade show in Chicago, he said casually. Couple nights. Right after Christmas? She asked. Yeah. Opportunity came up last minute. She nodded slowly. You want me to come? He smiled. Not this time. You be bored. Truth was, there was no show. No hotel. No meeting. He checked into a cheap motel under a different name and spent 2 full days building the Roan trap, buying a business domain, launching a fake consulting page, registering a Delaware LLC. All legal. All clean. He created a Gmail under the alias Brent Carlson, complete with a matching voicemail and business signature. He ran the profile through an investor pitch network Roan had submitted to 2 years ago. Roan took the bait within 48 hours. Would love to hop on a call, Roan replied. Timing is perfect. Marshall laughed quietly when he read it. Back home, Dana sent him a photo from bed. Just a glimpse of her leg under the blanket. Miss you, she wrote. He stared at the screen. Didn't reply. Not because he was angry, but because he didn't feel anything. That was new. He wasn't the hurt husband anymore. He was the hunter, and his alibi was airtight. Tori had always been the background noise. Snarky comments, passive-aggressive smiles, too many glasses of wine at family dinners. But now, Marshall saw her differently. She wasn't just Dana's sister. She was part of the infection. So he focused on her. Tori was engaged. Clean-cut guy. Rich family. They were planning a wedding for spring. She flaunted it every time she visited. He used that. He created a fake dating profile and made it painfully tempting. Luxury lifestyle. No strings. NDA. Tori matched within 3 days. The messages turned flirty fast. She had no idea who was on the other end. Marshall used a burner phone and a script. She sent photos. Risky ones. He screenshotted everything. But he didn't stop there. He hacked her cloud account. Easy, since Dana had once blurted out Tori's favorite password trick, her dog's name plus birth year. He found conversations. One audio note stood out. I mean, if Marshall finds out, so what? He's not going to leave. He's safe. He's predictable. The casual cruelty in her voice hit like a slap. He saved that too. She thought she was untouchable. They both did. That's why it would sting more when he tore her perfect little life apart. Not out of pettiness, but as a message, everyone who helped bury him would pay. Marshall knew Roan would bite. All men like him do. He sent the email with a clean header, minimal fluff, and a massive opportunity. Our investment group is vetting new tech-forward consultancies. Your profile was flagged. Let's discuss potential equity partnership. Time sensitive. Signed, Brent Carlson CEO, Avalan Systems, completely fake, but damn near perfect. Roan replied within 2 hours. Absolutely. Been looking to expand. Tell me what you're thinking. Of course you have, Marshall thought. They scheduled a Zoom call. Marshall disguised his voice slightly, just enough to pass. Clean shirt, fake background, no camera. Roan bragged for 30 minutes straight. Revenue streams, potential clients, app concepts. Total nonsense, but confident. Marshall listened, asked all the right questions. Send over the pitch deck, he said at the end. Roan practically threw it at him. That weekend, Dana told Marshall she had to fly out for a leadership conference. He nodded. Proud of you. She smiled, kissed his cheek. She left Saturday morning. That night, she posted nothing. But Roan did. A photo, taken from a private suite. Champagne, 2 glasses, and just barely in the reflection of the mirror behind him, Dana, She didn't even notice. Marshall did. He saved the image. Proof. Rowan was greedy, and Dana was sloppy. He now had them both exactly where he wanted. The fake investment deal moved fast. Marshall pushed deadlines. Need documents by Friday. Rowan scrambled. Sent everything. Financials. IP access. Even bank routing numbers. He made one mistake. He forged a partnership letterhead. Marshall flagged it, printed it, and dropped a tip to the state commerce office, anonymously. Within 48 hours, Rowan was under review for fraudulent misrepresentation. Meanwhile, Dana was still texting like nothing was wrong. Miss you. That trip made me realize how lucky I am. Marshall read it, then looked at the photo of her in Rowan's mirror reflection. He sent her back one word, same. She smiled from wherever she was and told Tori, he's getting soft again. Tori laughed. Told you. What neither of them knew was that Marshall had already mailed his second envelope. Not to Dana, to Tori's fiancé. Photos, screenshots, voice recordings, time-stamped. Her entire double life, neatly packed and sealed. 2 days later, Tori's engagement imploded at a family dinner. She tried to deny it, but her fiancé had evidence. And when she screamed that someone had hacked her, Dana looked up from the table, eyes wide. Marshall just sipped his water and said, some people really shouldn't lie to the ones who love them. Tori showed up at their house drunk 2 nights later, screaming. You did this, she yelled at Dana. Dana was stunned. What the hell are you talking about? You said he'd never know, that we were just helping you keep it together. And now I'm done. I've got nothing. Marshall watched from the staircase, silent. Dana dragged Tori inside, told her to calm down. But she was past that. You let me cover for you, lie for you, and now I'm the one who's ruined? You're poison, Dana. Dana started crying. Get out, she whispered. Tori laughed. Already gone. She stormed out, slamming the door so hard the wreath fell off the hook. Dana stood in the foyer, shaking. She turned to Marshall, tearful. I don't know what's happening. He walked up slowly, held her arms. You okay? He asked. She nodded, broken. I think so. He pulled her into a hug, kissed the top of her head. Don't worry. Everything's falling into place. The power shift wasn't loud. It was quiet. Marshall spoke less, slept more, smiled politely, listened carefully. He gave Dana nothing to react to, and that made her spiral. She noticed it first when he forgot their Friday night movie tradition, then when he stopped asking about her day, and again when he no longer offered to fix things around the house. He was present but disconnected. Dana asked, Is everything okay with us? Marshall looked up from his coffee. What do you mean? You just feel far. He shrugged. Maybe I'm just finally matching your energy. She blinked, caught off guard. What's that supposed to mean? He smiled. Nothing. Probably nothing. She tried to hold his hand later that night. He let her, but didn't squeeze back. At work, she couldn't focus. Her supervisor mentioned she'd been late to 3 meetings. Her head wasn't in it. At home, her sister wasn't answering texts. Rowan was becoming more pushy, talking about the future, asking when she was going to leave Marshall. But she didn't want to leave anymore. Not because she loved Marshall, because she feared him now. The way he watched her, the way he didn't argue, the way he stayed calm, too calm. And somehow, that scared her more than yelling ever would. It happened on a rainy Wednesday night. Marshall was in the garage again, pretending to stain a coffee table that didn't need it. Dana stood in the doorway, her arms folded tight. I need to talk to you, she said. He didn't look up. Okay, I haven't been honest with you. He paused, turned toward her, waited. I've been seeing someone else. Silence. Her voice cracked. I didn't mean for it to happen. It just, who is it? He asked quietly. She hesitated. Rowan. He nodded once. Since when? Months. Are you in love with him? I don't know, she whispered. No, I don't think so. It's not like that anymore. I haven't even seen him since. Since what? Since I realized I want to fix this. He looked at her long and slow. You want to fix this, he repeated. Now. She stepped forward. I'm sorry, Marshall. I really am. I lost myself. But you've been different lately, and I thought maybe, he held up a hand. No, what? No more lies. I'm not lying. You just started now. He turned back to the table, dipped the brush in stain, and calmly said, "Thanks for your honesty. You'll be hearing from my lawyer." Marshall didn't storm out. He didn't throw clothes into a suitcase or slam doors. He just vanished. Dana came home the next evening to a strangely still house. His tools were gone. His keys. The spare set of documents he kept in the office drawer. At first, she thought maybe he wanted to clear his head. Then she checked the bank. The joint account was empty. She called him. No answer. Texted. Green bubble. She drove to his father's old workshop, but it was locked, emptied, like no one had ever been there. Then came an email from Marshall's lawyer. Subject: divorce proceedings, notice of separation. There were attached documents. Clean, organized, already in motion. Every dollar had been accounted for. Every asset tracked. He'd left for the house, but not the land. She wasn't just abandoned. She was cornered. She sat on the kitchen floor, phone in hand, staring at nothing. He hadn't yelled. He hadn't thrown accusations. He had planned his exit like an engineer. Quiet, sharp, permanent. And all she could do was whisper to herself, "What the hell did I just lose?" The unraveling didn't come as a scream. It came in waves. Dana showed up at work Monday morning to find her access badge not working. The front desk manager looked up at her, confused. "Your manager wants to see you." She walked in, heartbeat tight. They didn't waste time. "We've received information regarding inappropriate financial activity connected to your personal associations. While the company is not formally accusing you of wrongdoing, we're suspending you pending review." She stammered, "Wait, what? What are you talking about?" They slid a printed packet across the desk. Screenshots, wire transfers, one email connected to her company address. She recognized the formatting. Marshall had printed this. Roan's name showed up on 3 of the transaction logs. Her hands trembled. She walked out without saying a word. By the time she got home, the house was cold. Not physically, just hollow, quiet in a way that felt like punishment. She tried calling Roan. No answer. She checked his company's site. Currently down from maintenance. Checked social media. Gone. Her stomach dropped. Everything she tried to keep balanced was tipping at once. And worst of all, she couldn't find Marshall. She checked his Instagram, his email, his LinkedIn. Everything was either deactivated or scrubbed. It was like he never existed. Except she could still feel him. In every silence. In every closed door. In every piece of her life that now felt like it was falling apart because he let it. 3 days later, it clicked. She was sitting in the bedroom, watching the hallway camera notifications that kept pinging on her phone. Normally, she ignored them. But now she opened one. It was from 2 weeks ago. Marshall, in the hallway, standing outside the guest room, listening. Her stomach turned. She scrubbed backward. He had heard it. The conversation with Tori. He's so pathetic, she dropped the phone, covered her mouth. He knew. He had known since Christmas morning, and he had played her ever since. She ran to the laptop, clicked into her browser history. Nothing. Wiped. She checked the router logs. He had logged in under a guest account. He'd hidden his steps. The camera in her car? Still active. She never saw it. She watched herself in hotel parking lots. Smiling. Laughing. Stupid. She sat back in the chair, blinking through tears. The truth wasn't just that he found out. The truth was that he had let her dig her own grave. And the worst part? He never once gave her the chance to explain. Because to him, there was nothing left to say. Roan called her in the middle of the night. His voice was shaky low. "They're coming after me." "Who?" Dana asked, heart racing. "Feds. IRS. Maybe more. Someone flagged my files." "You didn't, did you?" "No," she yelled. "I didn't tell anyone. I used your name on one of the proposals, just to look more official." She froze. "What?" "They're digging, Dana. I don't know how they found it." But she knew. She knew exactly how. "Marshall," she whispered. Roan groaned. "This is bad. Really bad." He hung up. She stood in the kitchen, staring out the window into the night. Then her phone buzzed again. New email. Anonymous tip submission confirmation. Federal Trade Commission. Her name was listed in the CC field. She dropped the phone like it burned her. Her chest heaved. This wasn't just revenge anymore. It was exposure. Marshall wasn't just ending her marriage. He was turning her whole life into a cautionary tale. Dana couldn't sleep anymore. Every sound felt like a signal. Every shadow in the hallway reminded her of him. Not the version who kissed her goodnight, but the version who stood silently and watched her destroy their life. She started hearing him in her head. His voice. His stillness. "You'll be the first to know if I'm not okay." That line echoed over and over. She looked through old voicemails. His voice used to be warm. Even when they fought, he sounded alive. Human. Now in her mind, it sounded cold. Flat. Like he was already gone when he spoke. She sat in the kitchen with a glass of wine at 3 a.m., staring at the door. Waiting. Part of her still thought maybe he'd come back. Maybe this was a test. Maybe he just needed to yell out of his system. But he didn't come back. Instead, her phone lit up with a push alert. Roan Delaney, local business owner under federal investigation. Her hands trembled as she read the article. Buzzwords jumped off the screen. Shell companies. Fraud. Misappropriated funds. Potential accomplice not yet named. Her name wasn't there. Yet. What it would be? She closed her eyes and whispered, "Marshall, what did you do to us?" And in the back of her mind, she heard him say, "Nothing you didn't start." Marshall sat in a quiet coffee shop 3 states away. He wore a simple hoodie, a beard growing in, and new glasses. No one recognized him. That was the point. On his laptop was a folder titled Closure. Inside were files, voice memos, camera footage, audio recordings, all time-stamped, all clean, all legal. He dragged a few key clips into a new folder, named it Witness Pack. Then he uploaded it to a secure Dropbox and emailed a contact from the local FBI tip line. No name, no notes, just the facts. Back at home, Dana was pacing, losing it. Roan had ghosted her. Tori wouldn't answer. Even her parents were keeping their distance after her sudden break from Marshall. She tried reaching out to Marshall's lawyer. Blocked. She finally sent Marshall a message. Just one word. Why? He saw it. Didn't reply. He closed his laptop and looked out the window. Across the street, a couple laughed over coffee. No lies. No games. For a second, he felt the sting of loss. Then he remembered Christmas morning. Her words. Her tone. He's so pathetic. He smiled to himself. Not anymore. Roan was done hiding. He showed up at Dana's house like a man on the run. Sweating. Jaw tight. Suit wrinkled. "You have to help me," he said the second she opened the door. "With what?" "They froze my accounts. I'm under audit. There's paperwork that has your name on it." Her face went pale. "I didn't sign anything." "You didn't have to. I listed you as a consultant on one of the decks." Her knees nearly gave out. "You did what?" He grabbed her arm. "I need you to say you helped. That you were part of the development. That this wasn't a scam." She yanked away. "You used me. You used me," he snapped. "You told me you were leaving him. You said we were building something." She stepped back. "We build a lie." He glared. "He's not just trying to hurt you. He's trying to end us." Her voice cracked. "There is no us." Roan stared at her for a long moment. "You really think you're getting out of this untouched?" And with that, he turned and left. She locked the door behind him and slid to the floor, cried for the first time not out of guilt but fear. Because for the first time, she realized Marshall hadn't just hurt her emotionally. He'd set the entire weight of the world on top of her, and now it was crushing. Dana barely left the house anymore. She checked the windows 5 times before going out. Parked cars made her nervous. Even a mail made her flinch. The walls of the home she once decorated now felt like watchers. Monitors, silent reminders that someone had been tracking everything. Every sound reminded her of the moment it all started to fall. Her company emailed her again. Her termination was official. The investigation hadn't pinned a crime to her name, but the PR risk was unmanageable. She had nothing to argue with. They weren't wrong. Then came the calls she never expected. 2 credit cards were declined. She checked her accounts. More had been frozen for fraudulent joint activity. Her name had been on things Marshall removed himself from months ago. She just hadn't noticed. He'd warned her, in his own way. Told her, without words, that he was preparing for war. And now the damage was showing up everywhere. Her phone buzzed again, Roan again. Voicemail only. "You're going to have to pick a side, Dana. They're watching me, and if I go down, you go down with me." She deleted it. Her eyes burned, but she didn't cry this time. She just sat down at the kitchen table and stared at the place where Marshall used to drink his morning coffee. Always black. Always in that same handmade mug he never let anyone else touch. She whispered, "You planned this. You watched me fall before I even jumped." He hadn't shouted. He hadn't begged. He hadn't fought for her. He had simply removed her from his world. And now that world was choking her out, one string at a time. Tori was done. Dana had texted, called, left voicemails that got more frantic every time. But silence. Tori had vanished after her fiancé dumped her. Probably off licking her wounds somewhere quiet and rich. But she hadn't come back to help clean the mess. And Dana was starting to understand why. Everyone had pulled away. Her coworkers distanced themselves. Even casual friends she used to gossip with stopped replying. She walked into the local grocery store and fell eyes on her back. Maybe it was in her head. Maybe not. She went home with one bag of groceries and locked the door behind her like it was routine. The house was still full of things, but felt completely empty. There was no sound of Marshall's boots coming in from the garage. No little noise from their son playing in the background. He'd gone to stay with her parents after everything settled down, though Dana knew her parents were shielding him from her chaos. Even the dog they once talked about getting never happened. It hit her now. How much of her life was performative? A mask. And now, with no audience, the mask felt pointless. She opened her laptop and searched his name. Nothing. Not a single trace of Marshall online. No business registry. No forwarding address. His social accounts were scrubbed clean. She stared at her own reflection in the screen and whispered. He erased himself. But really, he'd erased her. She tried to sleep that night, but woke up gasping from a dream. In it, Marshall had been standing at the foot of the bed. Not angry, just watching. She asked him, "What do you want from me?" He didn't answer, just stared. And in the dream, she realized something she hadn't dared admit until now. She missed the man she destroyed. The memories hit like a slow-moving storm. Dana sat on the edge of her bed and let herself rewind. To the beginning, before all this. To the day she met Marshall. He wasn't flashy. He wasn't loud. But he was solid. Safe. Steady. They met at a coffee shop. She was with friends, and he had stepped in to stop someone from harassing a barista. Didn't yell. Didn't threaten. Just calmly handled it. That's what made her notice him. She used to call that his quiet strength. Now, she saw it for what it really was, restraint. Their wedding came back next. His vows had been simple. I will protect you, even from your worst days. I will believe in the good in you, even when you can't see it yourself. She had cried during those vows. So had he. She remembered his hands trembling slightly when he put the ring on her finger. Now, those same hands had taken apart her entire life. Not out of hatred, but out of principle. Out of love that was betrayed so deeply it had to be buried. She got up, walked to the closet, and found the old wedding box, the one she never opened anymore. Inside were pictures, notes, one card that read, "When it's hard, let's talk. When it breaks, let's fix it." She crumpled it in her hand, tears finally sliding down her cheeks. "Why didn't you let me fix it, Marshall?" And somewhere deep inside, the answer echoed in her own voice. "Because you were still breaking it while he was trying to hold it together." It took Dana over a week to track him down. A former client of Marshall's, a woman he'd once built a custom walnut desk for, posted a picture on Instagram. The caption was simple, "New beginnings handcrafted." In the background was Marshall, not front and center, not posing, but unmistakable. He was smiling, not the way he smiled at her when they met, not even the way he used to smile at their son. His smile was light, untethered, free. She zoomed in on the location tag, Portland, Oregon. Her hand shook. He hadn't just left town, he'd started over. She booked a flight. By the time she landed, she still didn't know what she'd say. Maybe she wanted to apologize. Maybe she wanted to scream. Maybe she just wanted him to look at her the way he used to. But when she walked into his new workshop, a beautiful storefront lined with clean tools, rich wood tones, and calm music, none of that mattered. Because he looked at her like she was just another stranger. "Dana," he said quiet, controlled. She stepped forward. "Marshall, I needed to see you." He didn't invite her to sit. Didn't ask how she was. He just stood there waiting. "I came to say I'm sorry," she said. "I know that doesn't fix anything, but you're right. It doesn't. His voice didn't crack. Her throat did. I didn't expect this, she whispered. What did you expect? I don't know. Anger. Rage. Something. He nodded slowly. I had all that. You just weren't around to see it. She looked down, then up again. I hurt you, she said. Worse than I thought I was capable of. He nodded again. Then he said calmly, and I let you. Dana stood there, the air between them thick and sharp. You didn't have to do all this, she said, voice small. You could have just left. I did, he said. No, I mean what you did in my life. To Roan. To Tori. Marshall leaned back against the workbench, arms crossed. I didn't destroy your life, Dana. I just stopped protecting it. She flinched. That's not fair, she snapped. You set me up to fall. No, he said flatly. You built your own fall. I just made sure you felt the landing. She moved closer, voice rising. I lost everything. My job. My friends. My name. You made me look like a criminal. You made you look like a criminal, he replied. You faked a marriage. You used your sister. You lied to our son. You had an affair, then acted like I should have helped you carry the weight of it. She started crying. I was lost. No, he said. You were selfish. There's a difference. She wiped her face. I came here to make it right. It's too late. I loved you, she shouted. He stared at her, face unreadable. No, he said. You loved the version of me that didn't ask questions. You loved the man who filled your fridge, fixed your broken cabinets, and kept quiet while you built a second life behind his back. She was sobbing now. I didn't know how to stop. That's because you didn't want to. She looked around at his clean, beautiful shop. Every surface smooth. Every tool in its place. You're really okay without me? He gave the faintest smile. I was never okay with you. Back in her hotel room, Dana sat in the dark with the curtains shut tight. She'd come looking for closure. Instead, she got a mirror held up to her soul, and it cracked. Not because he yelled. Not because he humiliated her. Because he didn't care anymore. That's what broke her. She took off her jacket, sat at the edge of the bed, and stared at the TV screen, off, black, reflecting her shape. She whispered. He meant every word. The man she once thought would always be there had gone cold. Not with hate, but indifference. That's worse. Her phone buzzed again. Roan, call me. Please. She turned it off. Everything about Roan, now, made her skin crawl. He was a mirror of her worst choices. Her recklessness, her thrill-chasing, her escape plan from a life she had once promised to build. And Marshall? Marshall had never once needed revenge to feel good. He used it to feel done. She stood up, walked to the mirror, and finally saw herself. Not through guilt, but truth. A woman who took too much from someone who gave everything. A woman who gambled her life and lost to someone who never raised his voice, only his standards. She broke the silence with her own voice. He's not coming back, and I don't deserve him to. The crack in her chest widened. Because that was the first time she didn't cry for what she lost. She cried for what she never earned back. The plane ride home felt like a punishment. Dana stared out the window, red-eyed, silent. The seatbelt cut in her lap, but she didn't adjust it. The quiet hum of the cabin around her sounded like white noise. Nothing felt real anymore. She had gone to Portland thinking she'd somehow soften Marshall, bring him back to who he was. But what she found was worse than hatred. Detachment. The kind of peace someone earns after they've watched everything they love die and buried it by hand. She landed in Michigan late at night, called for a rideshare, and sat in the back seat of a stranger's car like a ghost. The house came into view, still standing, still hers, still full of things that didn't matter anymore. Inside, she noticed something. The fridge was still full of food he had bought. The calendar still marked anniversary in black ink from months earlier. A toothbrush still sat in the cup, his untouched. The weight of it all slammed her like a wave. She sat on the edge of their bed and looked around the room. The worn throw blanket he used every night was folded perfectly on his side. The scent of sawdust, of cedar and coffee, still faint in the fabric of the room. How did she miss how much he gave? How did she betray the man who kept showing up even when she didn't? Her mind raced with all the excuses she used to tell herself. He's boring. We've grown apart. Roan is just fun. But none of them made sense now. All of them sounded like what they really were, cowardice. Dana curled into the pillow and whispered into the silence. God, I'm so sorry, but there was no one left to hear it. The knock on the door came 2 days later. Roan, unshaven, tired, and completely unglued. The man who once dressed in tailored suits now looked like he hadn't changed clothes in days. Dana opened the door halfway. You look like hell, she said. Thanks, he muttered, pushing past her without waiting for an invite. You shouldn't be here. I had nowhere else to go. She followed him into the living room. He dropped into the chair Marshall used to sit in. Something about that made her stomach twist. Roan leaned forward. They're offering me a deal. Dana froze. Who is? The feds. If I hand over everything, documents, names, accounts, they'll cut me loose. Probation. Phoenix. And you came here to tell me that. Why? Because they want you, Dana. They know your name. They think you were part of it. She shook her head. I wasn't. You used my name without telling me. They don't care. Your name's on papers tied to false statements. That's enough for them to dig deeper. She stared at him, ice rising in her chest. So what do you want from me? I want you to back my story. Say we were working on the platform together. That you helped design it. I didn't. Just say you did. Dana laughed, short and cold. You want me to perjure myself? I want to survive, Roan snapped. She looked at him, saw the panic in his eyes. He was no longer the confident man who'd made her feel alive. He was crumbling. You're scared, she said. I should be. We both should. She turned away. Get out. Dana, she snapped. Get the hell out before I call them myself. Roan stood, jaw clenched. This isn't over. She didn't respond. Because, for her, maybe it finally was. Roan wasn't bluffing. The next morning, Dana received a formal notice from the Department of Justice. Her name had been flagged in a federal probe, not as a suspect, yet, but they wanted to speak. The word rattled her. It was too vague, too heavy. She knew what that meant. She wasn't safe. She called a lawyer, explained what she knew, what she didn't, what she thought might come out. The lawyer's voice was calm, but clipped. You need to assume they already have everything. Email logs, transaction histories, digital footprints. I didn't know, she whispered. Then prove it. After the call, she sat at her desk and pulled out her old hard drive, one she used to back up personal files before the cloud. She started digging. Photos, vacation folders, work documents, then a folder labeled Project Ideas. Inside was something that made her blood run cold. A PDF proposal Roan had sent her 2 years ago. She had skimmed it, deleted it, or so she thought. Her name was listed in the contributor section, clear as daylight. Co-strategist, Dana Reed. She buried her head in her hands. Marshall knew. That's why he leaked everything. He didn't just want revenge. He wanted Roan and Dana to turn on each other. Now she had no allies, no reputation, and no shield. She picked up her phone and hovered over Marshall's number. She never deleted it. But after a long pause, she put the phone down. Because she already knew what he'd say if he answered. I didn't destroy you. I just showed the world who you really were. It hit the news on a Thursday. Dana was brushing her teeth, trying to fake some version of normal, when her phone buzzed with a text from an old co-worker she hadn't heard from months. Hey, are you okay? Saw your name on the local news. She didn't move for a second. Then she walked into the living room and turned on the TV. Local station. Breaking news banner. A reporter standing outside a government building. Name came up in recent disclosures surrounding Roan Delaney, the business consultant now facing charges of financial fraud, identity misuse, and falsifying investor documents. One woman named in early filings as Dana Reed, his former collaborator. She didn't hear the rest. Her ears rang. Her stomach turned. Her name, not just whispered in a room, not passed around in hushed conversations, not buried behind legal notices. Public, on screen, national. She grabbed her phone, pulled up Google. Her name was trending. Not viral, not celebrity level, but enough. Blog sites, set, comment sections, photos of her and Roan at a gala 2 years ago, smiling. Headlines like, Did Dana Reed know? Ex-wife of local craftsman tied to tech fraud. Whistleblower or willing partner. She wanted to throw the TV through the window. She paced the room like she was being watched. And then came the moment she feared most. Her son's school called. Principal's voice was soft. Too soft. We've had some inquiries from other parents. It might be best if we hold off on his return for now, just until things settle. Dana gripped the edge of the counter so hard her knuckles turned white. She had already lost Marshall. But now, she realized something much worse. Her son was about to grow up ashamed of her name. The letter came 2 days later. No return address. Just her name. Neat handwriting. Black ink. She sat at the dining table where she used to eat dinner with Marshall every night and opened it slowly, carefully, like it might bite. Inside was one sheet of paper. No threats. No rage. Just 3 lines. I loved you more than anyone else ever will. You killed that. Now you know how it feels. Her hand shook. She stared at the words until they blurred. Because she knew he meant it. Every word. And not out of hatred, but out of clarity. He had loved her so deeply, so completely, that when she chose someone else, when she mocked him for still trying, he didn't just break. He evolved. He built something from that pain. Not a tantrum. Not revenge porn. Not some impulsive attack. He designed her collapse like one of his tables. Measured, routed, polished, stable. And then, when it was done, he walked away. That was the part she couldn't stomach. He never looked back. She folded the letter carefully and tucked it in the drawer beneath the wedding photos she still hadn't taken off the wall. This time, she didn't cry. She just whispered, "You finally found peace. And I finally understand what it cost." Dana didn't leave the house for a week. Not out of fear of being seen. She had already been seen. She was out there now, frozen in headlines, tied to a scandal she didn't even fully understand. No, she stayed inside, because for the first time in years, she was really alone. And silence like that does something to a person. She started writing, not to clear her name, but to make sense of it. She filled notebooks with memories, confessions, everything she had never said out loud. She wrote about the moment she started to drift from Marshall. It wasn't a single day. It was slow. Little things. He'd work late in the garage. She'd go to sleep scrolling. They stopped touching, stopped laughing. And then came Roan. He didn't force anything. He just existed at the right time. She thought he was an escape. But now she knew he was an excuse. Marshall never changed. She did. She got bored with peace and chased chaos in its place. She left a man who loved her completely for a man who only loved himself. And Marshall? He didn't chase her. He didn't beg. He waited. He watched. And when the time came, he held up a mirror. Now she was staring into it every day. No one else left to blame. No lies left to live in. And for the first time, Dana said the words that had been clawing at her from the inside. I deserve to lose him. And somehow, saying it out loud was worse than hearing it from him. Roan Delaney was arrested on a Friday morning. Dana woke to it. She didn't hear it from a news anchor this time. She heard it from the knock at her door. Federal agents. Calm, polite, unmistakably official. "We'd like to speak with you, Ms. Reed." They weren't accusing her. Not yet. They just had questions. Her hands trembled as she poured coffee, her voice strained and low. She answered what she could, denied what she had to, admitted what she couldn't avoid. They asked about her connection to Roan's consulting business, to the forged documents, to the money transfers that had her name attached. "I never saw those files," she said. They nodded, but she could feel it. They didn't fully believe her. Not yet. Maybe never. The agents left. Hours passed. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her front door like it might open again. When a news report hit that night, she didn't turn off the TV. Roan was in cuffs. Silent. Sunglasses on, head down. Facing charges of wire fraud, tax evasion, and business misrepresentation, his empire collapsed. Just like that. And Marshall? He was never mentioned. His name was nowhere in the report. No digital fingerprints. No leaks. That was the final stroke of brilliance. He wasn't just a man who walked away from chaos. He was a man who lit the fire and never left his fingerprints on the match. Dana stared at the screen and whispered, You didn't destroy him, Roan. He destroyed you. Quietly. And somehow, that made it worse. Because Roan had played games. Marshall had played chess. Across the country, Marshall stood in front of his father's grave for the first time in 2 years. It was early, cold. Mist hung over the grass like a curtain. He hadn't come here for ceremony. He came for honesty. The wooden box under his arm held one thing, a folded blueprint from the first coffee table he ever built. It was old, stained, edges soft from handling. He placed it at the base of the stone, right beneath his father's name. "I kept my word," he said quietly. "I didn't break anything." He stood for a long time, not in pain, not in hate, just still. "I did what you would have done," he said, only quieter. He smiled faintly. "You always said the strongest men don't yell. They just build, and then walk away." Marshall closed his eyes. There was no more noise inside him now. No fury, no ache. He wasn't waiting on an apology. He wasn't hoping for redemption. He had let go of her long before she even realized she lost him. And that was the gift no one could take from him. Peace. As he walked back to the car, he paused at the edge of the lot. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of pine and fresh earth. He whispered one last thing over his shoulder. "I forgive you, Dana, but I'll never forget who I had to become because of you." The new shop smelled like maple and fresh stain. Marshall stood in the center, hands on his hips, watching his two new apprentices carry in slabs of lumber. Young guys, eager, raw. He saw a little of himself in both of them. One of them asked, "You ever been married?" Marshall paused, smiled. "Once," he said, "a long time ago." "Sorry," the kid said quickly. "Didn't mean to bring up something bad." "It's not bad," Marshall replied. "Just not something I want to carry forward." They nodded and went back to unloading. He walked toward the back wall, where a new project sat, a dining table commissioned for a couple starting their first home. He ran his fingers along the edge of the wood. Smooth, balanced, centered. This was what he built now. No more surveillance. No more war plans. No more lies. Just real work. Real hours. Real people. Outside, a woman leaned on a car, waiting for a quote. Callie. She was a customer at first. Now, she came by more often. Sometimes just to talk. Sometimes just to sit. They hadn't crossed any lines. Not yet. But she felt different. No chaos. No complications. Just calm. He stepped outside, dust on his hands. "You're early," he said. Callie smiled. "You're always worth showing up for." For a second, the old version of him wanted to flinch, to doubt. But instead, he smiled back and said, "You hungry? There's a diner down the street." She nodded. As they walked to the car, Marshall glanced over his shoulder one last time, at the shop, the sawdust in the air, the open door behind him. And for the first time in a long, long while, he didn't look back with pain. Chapter 40. Chance 3 months later. The shop was quiet except for the hum of the sander in the background. Marshall was sitting on the edge of his workbench, hands covered in fine dust, drinking a bottle of water and letting the sunlight pour in through the open garage door. He hadn't checked his phone in hours, and that was new. There was no more urgency, no more hidden accounts or secret cameras, no more watching his own house like an outsider. This was his place. No lies lived here. Callie walked in holding a small brown bag. "Donuts. Got a deal on the way out of the bakery." Marshall smiled. "What kind?" "Apple fritters and something called a maple twist." "I figured you'd go for the boring one." He chuckled, stood, wiped his hands. "You figured right." She leaned on the counter as he grabbed one. "You ever gonna ask me out for real? Or do I have to keep showing up with food to earn your attention?" Marshall raised an eyebrow. "You think I haven't noticed the pattern?" She tilted her head, smiling. "I think you're still scared." He paused, fritter halfway to his mouth. She wasn't wrong. He was scared. Not of her, but of what it meant to try again. To trust. To believe someone wouldn't turn the comfort he offered into boredom. Or worse, a reason to betray him. But Callie didn't feel like a risk. She felt like a reset. "I was scared," he said finally, "but I'm not anymore." She looked at him, serious now. "Then do something about it." He put the fritter down, walked around the bench, took her hand. "Dinner tonight?" he asked. Her smile widened. "Took you long enough." He looked at her for a second. Not through her. At her. And for the first time in years, Marshall didn't feel like a man with something to prove. He just felt like a man, ready to live again. Chapter 41. Choice later that night. Marshall stood in front of the mirror. He hadn't worn this shirt in years. Navy, buttoned down, nothing flashy. Just clean, simple, presentable. He looked at his own reflection and didn't see the same man from before. Not the quiet husband who brushed off red flags. Not the broken man who'd held back tears in the garage. Not the engineer of revenge who dismantled a woman's life with precision. Just a man, with scars, but no weight left on his shoulders. His phone lit up on the counter. A message from Callie. Running 5 minutes late. Don't bail. He smiled to himself. Then his eyes drifted to the drawer beside the sink. It hadn't been opened in months. Inside was his old phone. The one with everything. The footage. The recordings. The notes. The blueprints. He opened the drawer slowly. Picked it up. For a moment, he considered turning it on. He could scroll through it all again. Remind himself of what he survived. Of what it cost to get here. But then he didn't. He placed it back inside. Closed the drawer. And in that small moment, he made the final decision that had taken him 2 years to reach. He wasn't going to live in the wreckage anymore. He wasn't going to be defined by betrayal. He had already gotten justice. He had already gotten peace. Now it was time to choose something else. When he walked out of the house, he didn't look back. Not at the drawer. Not at the past. Not at the version of himself that lived with one eye always open. He got in the car and drove towards something real. Not revenge. Not closure. Just something new. The wind outside was soft that morning, steady, cool, quiet. Marshall stood on the porch of his new home, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise over the trees. His workshop was just down the hill. The smell of sawdust and earth still hung faintly in the air from the day before. There was no chaos now. No phone calls. No games. No silence waiting to be decoded. Just stillness. Behind him, the house was warm. Lived in. Honest. No secrets inside its walls. Callie had stayed over for the first time the night before. She hadn't asked questions. She hadn't tried to pry into his past. She simply sat beside him, made tea, and listened to a record while they talked about things that didn't hurt. And maybe that was the lesson all along. Sometimes you don't heal by talking about the pain. Sometimes you just stop giving it the last word. Marshall walked down to the fence line, leaned on the post, and looked out at the land. No cameras. No traps. No plans to take anyone down. Just sunrise, quiet ground, and the knowledge that he had survived it all. Not as a victim, not even as a victor, but as a man who refused to stay broken. He closed his eyes for a second and let the calm settle. And for the first time in years, he didn't feel like something was chasing him. He felt free. He had peace. A message to you, the viewer. So, that's it. On Christmas morning, I overheard my wife telling her sister in the guest room, "He's so pathetic, and now you know what happened next." But here's the real question. What would you have done if you were in Marshall's shoes? Would you have walked away quietly? Or would you have burned it all to the ground? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I want to know, was this justice or was it just revenge? If this story hit you, if it made you pause, reflect, or even just sit in silence for a moment, don't forget to like this video, subscribe, and smash that bell icon so you don't miss the next one. More stories like this are coming. Real, raw, twisted, true feeling, and always with a twist. But until then, take care of your peace. Because once someone tries to take it from you, you'll never see life the same again. See you in the next story. The end.